regular question, which is, are Brits still moving to Spain? The answer to that is yes. What I found is, speaking with different people, 'cause a lot of people contact me about moving here, and a lot of them are putting off buying a property in Spain, but it's not stopping them moving to Spain. There's two reasons for that. The rents in Spain are fairly reasonable anyway, but also they are still motivated to come to Spain anyway. The only issues that I can see for somebody who's retiring is the arrangements around healthcare, if that ever changed. But I can't see the UK wanting to change it. Quite simply, it's cheaper to pay the Spanish government than it is to have the retirees back in the UK. And a lot of the people that are on their state pension, quite simply wouldn't be able to afford the private healthcare in Spain. So from that point of view, there's a lot of people that quite simply the UK doesn't want them back. It's too expensive. But ultimately, it's not just retirees, because I'm seeing a lot more people that are either what would be classed as digital nomads, where they work online, or they're in this sort of semi-retired sort of 50, let's say 45 upwards. So they're sort of looking for a slower life or a different life to what they have. And one of the advantages you've got with Spain is the cost of property is a lot cheaper. So buying a place here would probably be the equivalent of nearly your deposit in the UK these days. You know, if you've got somebody who is single, they can get a flat from about 40,000 upwards. In fact, if you move a little bit further inland, you can probably get the same sort of, well, what they classify as a bungalow, which is like a little one bedroom, from about 20,000 upwards. The point being is, if you take that cost out of the equation and essentially bought it cash, your cost of living drops by about 1/3, because then you've just got your bills and your food and your healthcare. So the point being is, once the property's out of the equation, it's pretty cheap to live in Spain. I think before, because it was built around the construction industry and the big boom and bust, the whole market was geared up in a very different way, in the sense that this obsession that property is just going to keep going up in value. I find it utter madness. I'm not a fan of that type of model anyway, because it's simply based on people just paying more for everything, in the sense that people coming into the property market will pay more for older properties or their first properties to assist those that are trying to buy more expensive properties. It's just an unsustainable model. But the one thing you've got with Spain is they keep constructing more houses, which keeps the market sort of stagnant in many ways. Because older properties don't seem to move as fast. And I have heard people say that they have moved fast in some areas, which quite simply could be true. But at the same time, there's still a lot of construction going on. And I know here in La Mata, a lot of the properties that are sitting empty are older properties. Now, the other side of this being is people that are moving to Spain aren't doing it for just a couple of years or whatever. They're looking at it as a long-term objective. As such, the property purchases are for a permanent basis. They're not looking to buy a property then flip it. They're looking to buy a property and live in it or rent it out. I haven't really heard of anybody actually talking about buying a property to sell it in 5 years or whatever, or looking at the end value in the properties. It's been the interest in actually living in it or a regular income. Well, both of those will work. One of the things that puts me off, you know, if I was buying and selling property here, is the taxes are fairly high. But I mean, there's got to be ways around that if you're set up as a business. But anyway, personally, I still think Spain's a great place to live once you crack work. Everything else is fairly easy. What do I mean? Well, the schools are good. You've got good public transport. The food's good. People are generally friendly. Where we are, we really don't suffer with any crime. There's not really any bad influences where we are. Don't get me wrong, Torrevieja's got some of its problems, but we're not in Torrevieja. But generally, life's pretty good. And if I was semi-retired or whatever, I would like to live here as well, simply because you come here and the pace of life's a bit slower. The cost of living's cheaper, so there's less stress on actually making an income every month. People are chilled out and laid back most of the time. We don't really have any of this sort of crap that goes on in the UK relating to like Friday, Saturday night drunkenness where we are, because we're at least 50% Spanish where we are. But don't get me wrong, there's people that do get drunk. I mean, we do find there's some of the Scandies, for example, like a little tipple, but because they're semi-retired or retired, they're not making a fool of themselves. They just have a lot to drink and go home. So we don't really have any disturbances of stuff. People are just generally chilled. There's no rush for anything. It's life is what it is, you know. So I'm just going to try and park here. It's a bit of a funny junction. So there's no real downside, if you know what I mean. The only well, except for work, which is why I mentioned a bit semi-retired and doesn't work online, because if you're trying to find work here, it is hard. But beyond that, it's not too bad. That is the only issue people seem to have. But along with that, once you get work, a lot of other stuff falls into place, because like your healthcare can be taken care of because it goes under your social security, same as it does in the UK. A Spanish pension can be built up the same as you would in the UK. But I do see a lot more people moving here, and it's a bit like where I'm seeing families move here as well. Not as many, but there is certainly a few families that are moving here because the life's better. And it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not me saying the life is better. That's what people communicate to me, but I do find it better than the UK anyway. Job opportunities for the kids later may or may not be better, but at the same time, the kids are multilingual, which puts them ahead on many things. You also find there's a lot of people here with degrees and other qualifications. So don't get me wrong, you may think, oh well, yeah, but you know, there's less work here. But if they've got the right qualifications, they can work anywhere in Europe. In fact, if they're with Spain, they can work anywhere in Europe and most of Latin America as well. Well, any of the former Spanish countries. The reality is they're set up quite well for that, but also the pace of life is more relaxed. But yeah, I can't think of any real downsides to actually wanting to move to Spain beyond getting work, because once you've got work, everything else drops in. But I mean, there's certain people we know that have what gets called menial jobs, but they're happy. You know, they enjoy everything else they've got, like this thing that's beaming through here. You've got the sunshine, you've got the beach, you've got a nice community feel here. The people are friendly, and there's nothing really negative. And the reason that I know I stress the word negative quite a lot, but the problem you've got in the UK, there's a lot of negativity around things like the Brexit. There's a lot of negativity around things like problems in London, problems here, problem in the media. It's constantly pushing things down. Here, don't really see it. The news is put together in a different way as well. But generally, you'll find on the news, well, like someone was asked me the other day about what the Spaniards think about Brexit. They just they don't understand why the UK wants to leave Europe in many cases. In other cases, they're not really bothered. There is politics that goes on in Spain between different regions. You know, you've got the Basque countries, Catalonia, but even when you speak to people from those areas, it's only certain groups that have an issue politically anyway. It's like anywhere, because a lot of people quite simply just want to go about their lives and leave everything as it is, because quite simply, if you drag yourself into politics, often it just drags you down. So there is a lot of people out there that simply just want to go through life and just enjoy what they have and not really want to get locked into the problems of the world. And I suppose that's another thing I like about Spain, is you do get that. They do say proactively get in politics and stuff, but personally, I find politics these days is so corrupt that I'd rather know nothing about it. And I know it sounds a bit dismissive, but you look at what goes on next with Boris. There'll be a few surprises in the UK relating to Boris, I'll tell you that now. But at the same time, in Spain, we do see a lot of the arrests are quite common for corruption in Spain, but generally not really about that many issues. People complain in this area about the bins being collected, or the grass hasn't been cut, and those sort of things, but nothing really major. And that's what I like. It's just chilled out generally. There's no real aggressive arguments on things. People are just going about their business as normal and not really getting sucked into the bigger picture of negativity. Thanks for watching.